Jalen wiped the sweat from his forehead as he bent over the crate of supplies. The dusty wind of the frontier settlement made his eyes water and the sun beat down without mercy. He had been working at the shipping dock since dawn, and the ache in his muscles reminded him that life had not been easy. Every coin he earned went to rent and food, leaving nothing for his real dream, a ship of his own. A ship could take him anywhere, far from this dry, crowded settlement where life felt like a never-ending struggle. Jalen's dream was not just about escaping poverty. It was about freedom. The freedom to explore the stars, to see distant planets, to live without worrying about where the next meal would come from. He had grown up hearing stories of travelers who journeyed to the outer colonies, discovering wonders and new friends. But those were stories of the lucky, the wealthy, or the brave. Jalen had none of those advantages. He only had his hands, his wits, and a stubborn determination not to give up. That morning, while he was stacking crates, a notice was posted on the main board of the settlement. The official paper fluttered in the wind, drawing a small crowd. Jalen pushed his way forward, curiosity pricking at him. The notice was unusual. It offered a reward that almost seemed impossible. A fully functional starship to any man who married a certain alien woman. Her name was Nisa, and she came from a distant colony. Many had already looked at the offer and walked away. People whispered that she was quiet, overlooked, even plain. Some said she had a strange appearance that did not attract attention like the others in her colony. Jalen felt a spark of hope. A ship, just what he needed. He had little money, little influence, and no chance of buying a vessel in the usual way. But this could change everything. He imagined the possibilities. A ship meant independence. A ship meant adventure. A ship meant a life far from these cramped streets and endless labor. Without thinking twice, he made his decision. He would go. He would meet Nisa, and he would earn that ship. He did not know much about her or the customs of her people, but he tried not to let that worry him. To him, this was a transaction, a simple trade, a marriage for a ship. He convinced himself that Nisa's personality, her likes or dislikes, mattered little. The real prize was the ship. The journey to Nisa's colony was long and uncomfortable. Jalen traveled in a small, cramped transport vessel, sharing space with other travelers, cargo, and the ever-present hum of machinery. He watched the stars streak by through the small window, imagining the ship he would soon own. He planned the route he would take, the destinations he would visit, the freedom he would finally have. It was easy to forget in these dreams that a human and an alien were about to be married. When he finally arrived, the colony looked different than he had imagined. Buildings were smooth and curved, with soft lights glowing along pathways. The aliens moved with quiet grace, their appearances varied, their movements precise. Jalen felt a little out of place. He was loud, rough, and human. He felt the weight of everyone's gaze on him as he walked to the official meeting place. Nisa was waiting. She was as the rumors had said, quiet, unassuming, easily overlooked. She did not rush to greet him. Instead, she observed, her eyes calm, almost calculating. Her hair shone faintly under the soft lights, and her skin had a gentle glow that was not obvious at first glance. Jalen felt confident. He thought he could easily impress her, talk her into agreeing to whatever he wanted. He smiled, trying to show charm, trying to hide his nervousness. "Hello," he said. His voice sounded louder than he expected in the quiet room. Nisa looked at him, and for a moment nothing happened. Then she nodded slightly as if to acknowledge his presence. She did not smile, did not speak immediately. Jalen tried again, speaking about the journey, the stars, and the excitement of life beyond the colony. She listened, tilting her head, asking small questions, but her words were precise, careful. She did not reveal much about herself. Jalen felt slightly frustrated. He was used to people who responded quickly, who followed his lead. Nisa was different. She was patient, watching him with quiet intelligence. He began to realize that this might not be as simple as he thought, but he pushed the thought aside. After all, the ship was waiting. That was all that mattered. The wedding ceremony was small, official, and strangely formal. Jalen followed the instructions, feeling the weight of every glance. People whispered, noting how quiet Nisa was, how little attention she demanded. To Jalen, it felt like a simple formality, a box to tick on the path to owning the ship. Yet, as he looked at her during the ceremony, he noticed something. Her eyes were steady, clear, and unafraid. There was a sense of purpose there that he did not understand. After the ceremony, they returned to the human settlement together. Jalen's heart raced with excitement. The ship finally would be his. He could see it in his mind, docked and waiting, ready for his control. He imagined traveling to distant planets, trading goods, discovering secrets. Nissa walked beside him silently, and for now he paid little attention to her thoughts or feelings. That night, as they prepared for the journey to claim the ship, Jalen sat outside under the stars. He could see the faint glow of the distant planets, each one a possibility, a new adventure. He felt a rush of hope he had never known. This marriage, he thought, was just the first step. He would have the ship, he would explore the stars, and finally, life would be different. Nissa watched him quietly from the doorway. She did not speak, did not interrupt his dreams, but in her mind, plans were forming. Jalen's excitement, his assumptions, his focus on the ship, she noticed everything. She would not be simply a passenger or a means to an end. She had her own ideas, her own goals. And soon, Jalen would begin to see that this marriage was not only about him, and the ship was not just a prize. As the wind blew softly across the settlement, carrying the scent of metal and dust, the two of them sat together under the stars. One dreaming of escape, the other quietly planning a future that neither of them fully understood yet. Jalen woke early the next morning, excitement buzzing in his chest. Today, they would finally claim the ship. He imagined it gleaming under the sun, the controls familiar beneath his fingers, the engines roaring to life as he guided it beyond the settlement. This was the moment he had been waiting for his entire life. Nissa moved beside him quietly. She did not rush, she did not chatter. Her movements were precise, her gaze calm, but Jalen noticed she was always aware of everything around them. She observed the bustling settlement, the humans and aliens moving through the streets, the merchants calling out their goods. At first, Jalen thought she was just shy or reserved, but as they walked, he realized she was studying everything. Every detail, every gesture, every word. Jalen tried to talk to her, telling her about the ship, about his plans, about the adventures they would have among the stars. He expected her to be impressed or at least excited, but Nissa listened without revealing much. Occasionally, she asked questions, small ones that seemed harmless. But each question made Jalen pause and think. She wanted to know not just the facts, but the reasons behind them. When they reached the shipping yard where the ship was kept, Jalen felt a thrill. There it was, a sleek vessel, shining metal and smooth curves, ready to take him anywhere. He ran his hands along the hull, imagining the freedom it would bring. Finally, he said, "This is it, Nissa. Our ticket to a new life. Isn't it amazing?" Nissa nodded, but instead of sharing his excitement, she studied the ship carefully. She walked around it slowly, examining every corner, every panel, every detail. Jalen noticed the way her eyes lingered on the access panels and security systems. She moved with purpose, as if she could understand its workings better than he could. "I've never seen one like this up close," Jalen said, pride swelling in his chest. "Soon it will be ours. Just imagine where we can go." Nissa's gaze met his.
"It is impressive," she said softly. "But impressive things are not always simple to control." Jalen laughed, brushing off her comment.
He was confident. He could handle a ship. He had worked with machinery all his life. He did not need warnings. Yet something in Nissa's tone made him pause, a quiet certainty that made him uneasy without reason. Over the next few days, they prepared the ship for departure. Jalen focused on the physical work, checking fuel levels, inspecting engines, making sure supplies were loaded. He worked long hours, pride in his chest and dreams of stars in his mind. Nissa, meanwhile, moved among the crew, quietly observing, learning, asking questions that no one seemed to notice. One evening, as they rested after a long day, Jalen spoke of the planets he wanted to visit, the colonies he wanted to trade with, the adventures he would have. He imagined the two of them soaring through space, free from worry, free from the struggles of the settlement. He spoke quickly, excited, dreaming aloud. Nissa listened silently. Then she spoke, her voice calm and precise. "Jalen, have you considered the customs of the colonies you wish to visit? Not all places value the same things. Some will judge us by our actions more than our words." Jalen frowned, a little annoyed. "Of course I have. I know how to handle people. I've managed traders, dock workers, even inspectors. I can handle anyone." Nissa tilted her head. "Handling is different from understanding. A wrong move can cost more than a harsh word." Sometimes knowing what not to do is as important as knowing what to do. Jalen was quiet for a moment, realizing she was right. He had thought of the ship as a simple escape, a way to leave his problems behind. But Nisa saw the bigger picture. She understood that a life among the stars was not just about having a ship, but about navigating the worlds and people they would encounter. The next morning, a small group of traders arrived unexpectedly, questioning the ship's ownership. Jalen felt panic rising in his chest. He tried to speak firmly, trying to assert control, but the traders were cautious and his words seemed less important than his presence. Nisa stepped forward. "Gentlemen," she said calmly, "I understand your concerns. Let us review the documents together. There is no need for conflict." Jalen watched in awe as she handled the situation. Her tone was confident but polite, her understanding of protocol and logic clear. The traders quickly realized she knew more than they expected, and they left without further trouble. Jalen felt a mix of relief and surprise. This was not the quiet, overlooked alien he had imagined. That night he approached her. "Nisa, I didn't realize you were so capable. You handled that better than I could have." Nisa smiled faintly, a small curve of her lips. "I have had to learn. I am not as overlooked as people think. I observe, I think, and I act when necessary. You focused on the ship and the work. I focused on understanding the people around us. Together we can do more than either of us alone." Jalen felt a shift in his thoughts. The ship was important, yes, but Nisa's mind, her intelligence, her ability to see things he could not, that was something he had underestimated. He realized that this marriage, which he had thought was simply a ticket to wealth, was more complex. Nisa had her own plans, her own goals, and he could not ignore them. Over the following days, as they prepared for their first voyage, Jalen began to pay more attention. He noticed how Nisa studied the charts, how she anticipated problems, how she interacted with the crew. Her quiet presence was commanding in subtle ways. She did not demand attention, but her influence was felt in every small decision. One evening, under the glow of the settlement lights, Jalen asked, "Nisa, why did no one notice how smart you are? Why did people overlook you?" She looked at him, her eyes calm and steady. "People often see what they expect. I did not fit the expectation of a bride they desired. Quiet, overlooked, plain, those were the labels. But I learned to use their assumptions to my advantage. Underestimating me was their mistake, not mine." Jalen felt a mixture of admiration and humility. He realized that the life he had imagined, simple, easy, filled with adventure, was only the beginning. Nisa would guide them, challenge them, and push him to think in ways he had never considered. He had married for a ship, but now he understood that he had gained much more, a partner who would shape their journey together. As they watched the stars that night, Jalen felt a new kind of excitement. The ship was still a dream come true, but the real adventure was beginning in ways he had never expected. With Nisa at his side, he knew that escaping poverty was only the first step. The true journey, one of understanding, growth, and partnership, was just beginning. The day of their first voyage arrived. Jalen could barely sleep the night before, tossing and turning as he imagined the engines roaring to life and the ship soaring past the settlement into the endless black of space. Finally, he would leave behind the dusty streets, the endless labor, and the constant worry of survival. The ship was his freedom, and he was determined to make it theirs. Nisa, on the other hand, moved through the preparations with calm precision. She checked the supplies, examined the ship's systems, and spoke quietly with the crew. Jalen watched her, a mixture of admiration and frustration stirring in him. She was thorough, intelligent, and aware of details he had not even considered. And yet she did not rush. She did not panic. She moved as if she had done this 1,000 times before. As Jalen climbed into the pilot's seat, he felt a surge of excitement. The controls were complex but familiar to him from years of work with machinery and transport systems. He imagined the ship responding perfectly to his commands. He imagined the stars streaking past, the planets rising and falling in brilliant colors. This was his moment, and he intended to enjoy it fully. "Ready to go?" he asked, turning to Nisa. She nodded, her calm eyes meeting his. "We are ready. But remember, Jalen, a smooth journey depends on more than skill. Understanding those around us and anticipating problems is just as important as knowing the controls." He laughed nervously. "Don't worry. I've got this. Nothing can go wrong." At first, the journey was simple. The engines purred, The ship lifted smoothly, and Jalen felt the thrill of movement he had dreamed of for so long. He smiled, feeling invincible. Nisa, however, remained observant. She studied the navigation charts, checked the readings, and quietly advised the crew. Her calm presence was reassuring, but her words also carried authority. It wasn't long before the first problem arose. A group of traders they had to meet for supplies delayed their departure, questioning Jalen's authority and the legality of their cargo. Jalen tried to handle it the way he had always handled disputes, with firmness, persistence, and a little bluster. But the traders were patient, cautious, and not easily impressed by loud words. Jalen felt frustration rising, and a small knot of fear formed in his stomach. Nisa stepped in. She spoke softly but confidently, addressing the traders with respect and precision. She explained their documents, anticipated questions before they were asked, and subtly guided the conversation so that the traders felt understood. Within minutes, the dispute was resolved without confrontation. Jalen watched in awe, his pride mingling with a strange sense of humility. "That was incredible," he said once the traders left. "I don't know how you did that." Nisa smiled faintly. "I listened. I observed. I understood what was important to them. Sometimes people respond better to understanding than to force." Jalen felt a flicker of unease. He had always thought of the ship as his victory, his way out, and he had assumed that control would be simple once he had it. But Nisa's actions showed him that control was not just about strength or skill, it was also about insight, understanding, and patience. He realized that he had underestimated her, just as he had underestimated the journey ahead. As they continued toward the stars, small disagreements began to surface. Jalen wanted to take a direct route, believing speed was the most important. Nisa cautioned that they should consider trade laws, inspection schedules, and potential hazards along the way. Jalen, impatient and focused on reaching their first destination quickly, sometimes ignored her advice. One evening, after a particularly long day of arguments about the best path to take, Nisa approached him. "Jalen, we cannot simply rush forward without thought. We may gain speed, but we also risk mistakes that could cost us much more than time." He frowned, frustration evident in his face. "I know what I'm doing, Nisa. I've managed ships before. I've handled problems like this 100 times. We need to move fast." She shook her head gently. "Experience is valuable, but wisdom is different from speed. I am not trying to control you. I am trying to guide us, to make sure our journey succeeds without unnecessary loss." Jalen realized, reluctantly, that she was right. He had imagined that owning the ship would solve everything, that he could control the course and handle any obstacle with skill alone. But Nisa had opened his eyes to a different way, one that required thought, patience, and cooperation. The tension between them grew, not from anger, but from the clash of expectations. Jalen had married for the ship, for freedom, for adventure. Nisa had joined him not as a prize, but as a partner with her own vision. Their paths were intertwined, but not identical. Each had to learn to respect the other's strengths and understand the limits of their own assumptions. A week into the voyage, they faced a major challenge. A small asteroid field appeared unexpectedly, with debris drifting unpredictably across their path. Jalen instinctively grabbed the controls, attempting to maneuver through with speed and precision, but the field was treacherous. Each sudden movement threatened to damage the ship, and panic began to set in. Nisa took a deep breath and spoke clearly. "Trust me, Jalen, let me guide you. We need careful calculation, not speed." For the first time, Jalen hesitated. He had always been the one to act, to decide, to lead. But now he felt a strange trust in her calm confidence. Slowly, he allowed her to take the lead, adjusting the controls as she instructed. Step by step, maneuver by maneuver, they navigated the asteroid field safely. When they cleared it, Jalen exhaled, heart pounding. He looked at Nisa with a new sense of respect. I didn't know you could do that." "You're incredible." She smiled, not boastfully, but with quiet assurance. "We succeed when we work together. Alone, we might fail. Together, we can overcome almost anything." That night, as they rested under the dim lights of the ship, Jalen reflected on the week's events. The ship was still his dream, still a symbol of freedom, but he had begun to see it in a new way. It was not just a vessel to escape poverty. It was a stage for partnership, for learning, and for growth. Nisa had plans of her own, and her intelligence and foresight had already shaped their journey in ways he could not have imagined. For the first time, Jalen began to feel that this marriage was not a simple transaction. It was the beginning of a true partnership, one that required respect, understanding, and cooperation. He realized that Nisa's quiet power, the very thing others had overlooked, was exactly what made her indispensable. As the ship glided through the stars, Jalen looked over at Nissa. She was reviewing charts, calm and focused, her presence both comforting and commanding. He felt a mixture of admiration and humility, realizing that his original plan, to marry for a ship, was only the beginning. Nissa had her own plans, and he was... The next morning, the ship hummed softly as it drifted toward the outer trade route. Jalen felt confident. The past week had taught him much, and he had begun to trust Nissa's judgment more than his own instincts in some situations. Yet he could not shake the feeling that the stars held surprises he was not ready for. As they approached a routine supply station, a warning flashed across the control panel. The shipment they were carrying, essential supplies meant for trade, was missing from one of the cargo holds. Panic surged through Jalen. This was their first major trade, and if the cargo was lost, their plans could collapse. The ship was their ticket to freedom, and now that ticket seemed in danger. Jalen rushed to the hold, checking every crate and container. Nothing appeared to be tampered with, but the sensors confirmed that part of the shipment had vanished. He ran back to the control room, heart pounding. "Nissa, the shipment, it's gone. We could lose everything." Nissa's expression remained calm, though her eyes narrowed slightly in thought. "Breathe, Jalen. Let's assess the situation carefully. Panic will not restore what is missing." Jalen wanted to argue, to demand immediate action, but he noticed the steadiness in her voice. It reminded him that she had already handled challenges he had barely noticed. He nodded reluctantly and followed her lead. Together they analyzed the ship's logs and security systems. Nissa pointed out subtle inconsistencies, an access code used at an unusual time, a sensor that had been bypassed without triggering alarms. Jalen realized that while he had been focused on physical labor, Nissa had a mind trained to notice patterns, anomalies, and possibilities. "I think someone from the station may have tried to intercept our cargo," Nissa said quietly, "but they underestimated our tracking systems." Jalen stared at her, amazed. "How can you know all this?" Nissa smiled faintly. "Observation, logic, and experience. I do not act blindly. I watch, I think, and I plan. Now we must act carefully to recover the shipment before it is lost for good." She directed the crew to follow a specific route to intercept the missing cargo. Jalen tried to suggest shortcuts, quick maneuvers, and bold strategies, but Nissa patiently explained why each could fail. Her plan relied on calculation, timing, and subtlety rather than speed or force. For the first time, Jalen truly felt the difference between acting and thinking, between doing and understanding. As they approached the coordinates where the shipment had been detected, Jalen's excitement and fear mixed. He watched Nissa coordinate with the crew, adjusting the ship's speed and trajectory with precision. She communicated with the station remotely, negotiating and misleading those who had taken the cargo without ever raising her voice. The next hour was tense. Jalen's heart raced as they closed in on the location. Any mistake could mean the cargo was lost, their chance for success destroyed. Yet Nissa remained calm, unshaken, guiding them step by step. She anticipated problems before they arose, adjusted plans in real time, and made decisions that no one else could have predicted. Finally, they reached the shipment. It was intact, hidden in a small docking bay. Jalen felt a wave of relief, but it was accompanied by awe at Nissa's ability to manage the situation. She orchestrated the retrieval flawlessly, ensuring the cargo was secured and the route back to their ship remained unnoticed by anyone who might interfere. When they were finally safe aboard their vessel, Jalen turned to her. "Nissa, I don't know what I would have done without you. I thought owning the ship was the hardest part. I didn't realize handling the journey would be even harder." Nissa shook her head gently. "The ship is only a tool, Jalen. Success depends on the people aboard it, on their knowledge, awareness, and cooperation. You dreamed of freedom, but freedom without understanding can lead to failure. You have the heart and the courage. Now you also have the chance to learn." Jalen felt humbled. He realized that he had entered this marriage thinking it was about escaping poverty and gaining a ship. But now he saw it was also about partnership, growth, and understanding. Nisa's quiet strength had saved not only their shipment but also the dream they shared. That night, as they reviewed the logs and planned their next route, Jalen noticed a change in himself. He listened more, considered Nisa's suggestions carefully, and admitted when he did not know the answer. He began to understand that leadership was not only about making decisions, but also about valuing the insights of others. Nisa, meanwhile, seemed content. She did not boast or demand recognition. She had quietly ensured their success, and she had done so in a way that allowed Jalen to retain confidence and pride. She had guided him, not controlled him, showing him a new way to think, plan, and act. By the next day, their ship was ready to continue the journey. Jalen felt a new kind of excitement, not the reckless thrill of escape, but the steady, growing confidence that they could face challenges together. He watched Nisa as she checked systems and coordinated with the crew, noting how her calm presence balanced the nervous energy he often felt. "Nisa," he said quietly, "I understand now. This ship, it's not just about leaving poverty behind. It's about learning to navigate life, not just space, and I couldn't do it without you." Nisa looked at him with a small, knowing smile. "And you, Jalen, bring courage and determination. Together we can face whatever comes next. The stars hold many challenges but also many opportunities. We are stronger when we face them together." Jalen felt a warm sense of partnership. The marriage that had begun as a way to escape poverty and claim a ship had transformed into something more meaningful. It was now a journey of trust, respect, and shared goals. He realized that Nisa's plans, which had seemed subtle and quiet, were actually guiding them toward true success, one that could not be measured by ownership or wealth alone. As the ship glided smoothly through the stars, Jalen looked at Nisa and felt gratitude, respect, and anticipation. Their future was uncertain, filled with challenges and surprises. But he knew one thing. With Nisa by his side, no obstacle seemed impossible. The stars stretched endlessly before them, full of wonder and danger alike. Jalen's dreams had not ended, they had evolved. And with Nisa's guidance, he knew they could reach heights he had never imagined. Not as a man alone, but as part of a true partnership. The stars stretched endlessly outside the ship's windows, glimmering like distant promises. Jalen sat at the control panel, but his hands rested lightly on the controls. He was no longer the man who thought the ship alone could solve all his problems. He had learned through days of travel and challenges that strength, courage, and intelligence mattered, but so did partnership, respect, and trust. Nisa moved quietly behind him, reviewing navigation charts and communicating with distant colonies. Her calm presence had become a steady rhythm in his life, a guiding force that complemented his energy and determination. Jalen watched her, realizing that the journey had transformed not only their destination but also themselves. He had married for a ship, to escape poverty and claim freedom, but he had gained far more. A partner whose wisdom and insight shaped their shared future. Their first stop was a distant colony that Jalen had once imagined visiting alone. He had pictured excitement and opportunity, but now he saw it differently. With Nisa at his side, he approached the colony prepared, thoughtful, and aware of local customs. Nisa had briefed him on the trade laws, social norms, and even subtle etiquette that could make or break their dealings. The reception was far warmer than Jalen had expected. Nisa greeted the officials with quiet confidence, and Jalen followed her lead. He realized how often he had acted impulsively in the past, relying on his strength rather than understanding. Here he learned that success was not just about courage, it was about respect, patience, and careful observation. During negotiations for supplies and trade, Nisa subtly guided the conversation. She anticipated questions, pointed out mutual benefits, and resolved minor disputes before they escalated. Jalen noticed how the officials responded differently to her presence, trusting, respectful, and even impressed by her calm intelligence. He felt a deep admiration, realizing that she had been underestimated by everyone, just as he had underestimated her. That evening, as the ship rested at the colony docks, Jalen and Nisa shared a quiet moment. The sky above glimmered with unfamiliar stars, and the hum of the settlement was a soft background to their conversation. "Nisa," Jalen said softly, "I thought I knew what I wanted. I thought freedom meant owning a ship. But now I see it's more than that. Freedom is about knowing you're not alone, It's about having someone who challenges you, guides you, and shares your journey. Nisa turned to him, her calm eyes reflecting the starlight. Jalen, the ship is only a tool. It allows us to reach places, but it is not the goal itself. The journey, the choices we make, the people we work with, the challenges we overcome, that is what shapes us. I did not come along just to be part of your escape. I came to be your partner, to share in the decisions, the risks, and the rewards. Jalen felt a warmth in his chest he had never experienced before. He had married with the expectation of using Nisa to claim a prize, but she had quietly turned the situation around. She had not only saved their cargo and their journey, but she had also taught him humility, patience, and the true meaning of partnership. Over the next weeks, their travels took them to distant colonies, each with unique customs and challenges. Jalen still marveled at the ship, still thrilled by the stars, but his perspective had shifted. He now relied on Nisa's wisdom, learning from her insights and appreciating her quiet strength. The crew, too, noticed the change. Jalen's confidence, balanced with Nisa's guidance, created a harmonious environment where everyone felt respected and valued. One day, while navigating a dense asteroid field far from any settlement, a sudden warning flashed on the control panel. Debris had shifted unexpectedly, threatening the ship's hull. Jalen instinctively reached for the controls, but Nisa's calm voice stopped him. "Trust me," she said. "We need careful calculation, not sudden movement." Jalen nodded, allowing her to guide him. Step by step, they maneuvered through the field, the engines responding precisely to her instructions. For the first time, Jalen felt that their partnership was not just about sharing tasks. It was about mutual trust, knowing that each could rely on the other in moments of danger. After the danger passed, Jalen laughed softly, relief and admiration mixing in his voice. "I don't know how you do it, Nisa. You make it look easy." Nisa smiled faintly. "It is not easy. It requires attention, patience, and understanding. But together we make it possible. You bring courage, determination, and heart. I bring observation and strategy. Together we are stronger than either of us alone." Jalen realized she was right. Their marriage, which had begun as a means to escape poverty, had grown into a true partnership. He no longer saw the ship as his prize alone. It was their vessel, their shared tool, carrying them toward a future shaped by both of them. As they traveled further, Jalen began to notice how much he had grown. He listened more carefully, considered other perspectives, and approached problems with thought rather than only action. Nisa noticed the change as well, and she encouraged him, guiding subtly, never diminishing his confidence, always strengthening their bond. One quiet evening, as the stars stretched endlessly around them, Jalen spoke again. "Nisa, I want you to know, I understand now. I married for a ship, but I gained something far more valuable. You've changed the way I see everything. You've shown me that success is not just about reaching a goal, but about how you get there, who you take with you, and how you grow along the way." Nisa reached out, placing a hand gently on his arm. "And you, Jalen, have shown me that courage and determination can inspire. We have both learned from each other. This journey is ours to shape together. The stars may be endless, but so is the potential we have when we work as partners." Jalen smiled, feeling a deep sense of gratitude and understanding. He had entered this marriage thinking it was a simple transaction, a way to escape a hard life. But Nisa had quietly guided him, challenged him, and taught him that life's greatest rewards were not always material. The ship, the stars, the colonies, all were part of a larger journey, one that required wisdom, patience, courage, and above all, partnership. As their ship glided through the endless black of space, Jalen and Nisa sat side by side, watching distant stars drift past. Their future was unknown, filled with challenges, adventures, and discoveries. But for the first time, Jalen felt a certainty he had never known, that with Nisa by his side, no challenge was too great, no goal unreachable, and no journey impossible. The stars beckoned them forward, vast and full of promise. But it was the partnership they had built, the respect, the trust, the shared vision that truly guided them. Jalen had married to escape poverty and earn a ship, but he had gained far more. A life of adventure shared with someone whose mind, heart, and courage matched his own. And together they were unstoppable.